All right, so welcome to another deep dive, and today we're taking a look at CMS Info Systems Limited, or as they are known by their ticker symbol, CMS Info.
Right.
And you sent this over to me, and I took a look, and it seems like a really interesting company.
Yeah.
One that I personally wasn't too familiar with before looking at all this material.
Yeah. And thanks for doing this. You've provided a very comprehensive set of materials here. We've got the annual report, which is great, of course, and then we have previous year's reports and even investor call transcripts and other company filings. So a lot to go through here.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we're doing this, right? Because
Yeah.
it is a lot. I mean, if you were to just go through all of this on your own, it can be quite a task. So
Yeah, absolutely.
we're doing the heavy lifting for you here, so you can just sit back, relax, and listen,
Right.
and hopefully come away with really a good understanding of what this company's doing and where they're headed.
Yeah. So we'll highlight all those key takeaways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right, why don't we just jump right in?
Yeah. Sounds good.
And maybe we can start with just a basic overview of the company for those who might not be familiar.
Sure.
Like
Right.
when was it founded? What do they actually do? That kind of thing.
Absolutely. So CMS actually has a pretty interesting history. They were founded back in 2009 through a partnership with Blackstone.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they've been around for a while now.
Okay.
And initially, they were really focused on the movement and management of physical cash, so cash logistics, the whole
I see. So that was their bread and butter.
Yeah, that was their bread and butter, absolutely.
Really?
But they've really broadened their scope since then.
Okay.
They've evolved into this, you could call it a comprehensive business services outsourcing platform.
Right.
So they're essentially handling a range of operational tasks for other companies.
Got it. Okay. So kind of like taking care of the back end for businesses.
Exactly. Yeah, taking care of all that stuff that.
Stuff that nobody really wants to deal with.
Right, exactly.
Okay. But what kinds of tasks specifically? What are the main areas that they focus on?
Yeah, so their primary areas are still cash logistics. That's still a big part of their business.
Okay.
So this involves everything from transporting cash securely to
Mhm.
managing ATM cash levels, things like that.
I see.
But then they also have a substantial managed services division.
Okay.
And this is where they offer these technology-driven solutions. So things like software platforms for financial institutions,
Mm-hmm.
automation of banking processes.
Yeah.
They even have like an ATM as a service model.
Wow.
So they'll actually take over the complete operation and maintenance of ATMs for banks.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And more recently, a growing area for them is AIoT, so artificial intelligence of things.
Oh, wow. AIoT.
Yeah, and this is where they provide these remote monitoring solutions, leveraging connected devices and data analysis.
So that's like next level stuff.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's pretty cutting edge. So you think of AIoT for them in ATMs is a system that not only monitors cash levels remotely, but it can also predict potential maintenance issues
Oh, wow.
before they even happen.
That's pretty impressive.
So yeah, saving time and money for the banks and ensuring that, the ATMs are up and running.
Right. Always a good thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not just about physically moving cash anymore. There's a lot of technology involved here.
Right. There's a lot of technology integrated into their offerings, yeah.
And speaking of their operations, what kind of scale are we talking about here in India?
Oh, it's extensive.
Yeah.
Their network is huge. They cover over 4,000 routes across the country.
Wow.
They have around 23,000 employees
Okay.
who manage all these operations.
23,000. That's a lot of people.
It's a big workforce, yeah. And geographically, they have a pan-India presence, so they reach over 16,000 PIN codes.
Okay.
And they highlight that this covers like 97% of the country,
Wow.
including very remote areas. And,
So they're pretty much everywhere.
they are pretty much everywhere, yeah. I think there's even a graphic in their report somewhere that shows like a visual representation of their regional coverage.
Oh, that's interesting.
And in total, they manage around 150,000 business points.
Wow, that's a huge footprint.
It is, yeah, it's massive. So that really underscores, the sheer scale and complexity of their logistical operations across India.
Right.
They're touching a vast number of businesses and individuals.
Yeah, for sure. So to manage such a large operation, they must have a whole network of supporting entities, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Subsidiaries and things like that.
They do. So as of March 31st, 2024, they had several wholly owned subsidiaries.
Okay.
There's Secure Trans India, which is involved in secure logistics, so probably like high-value transport.
Right. Makes sense.
Then you have CMS Securitas and CMS Marshall, which likely focus on providing security personnel and related security services.
Okay.
Then there's Quality Logistics Services, which probably handles general logistical support.
Right.
Hamab Technology is focused on developing and implementing their technological solutions.
Got it.
And finally, there's the CMS Info Foundation, which manages their corporate social responsibility initiatives.
Okay. So kind of like the philanthropic arm.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's interesting to note that Secure Trans India was actually deemed a material subsidiary in fiscal year 24.
Oh, okay. What does that mean exactly?
Well, basically, it means it's a really significant part of their revenue or profits.
I see.
So it likely indicates the importance of their secure logistics operations,
Right.
to their overall business.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely something to note.
Okay. So a large and diverse operation with a lot of different arms, handling various aspects of the business.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's move on to the numbers then.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
You shared their financial performance for the last fiscal year, 2023-24, and it seemed quite positive overall.
Yeah, it was a very strong year for them.
Okay.
They reported robust operational and financial growth.
It's excellent.
So looking at their standalone figures, their revenue from operations reached $20,468.38 million.
Okay.
That's a significant increase of over 20% compared to the previous year.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a big jump.
Yeah.
And their profit before tax also saw a healthy increase, going up to $4,588.69 million from $3,650.81 million in fiscal year 23.
Okay.
So this indicates a significant improvement in their profitability, before accounting for taxes.
Right, of course. So what about the bottom line, though, the net profit?
Exactly.
That's ultimately what matters, right?
Yeah, that's what gives you the clearest picture of a company's financial health.
For sure.
And their net profit on a standalone basis grew even more impressively.
Really?
Yeah, it hit $3,542.18 million in fiscal year 24.
Okay.
That's a substantial 28.62% growth from the $2,754.07 million they reported in fiscal year 23.
Wow, so they're not just keeping pace, they're really outpacing the market, it seems.
Yeah, they're doing very well, and this strong profit growth translates to better earnings per share as well.
Right. The EPS figures, can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Sure. So both their basic and diluted earnings per share showed an increase in fiscal year 24 compared to the prior years.
Okay.
The basic EPS was 22.67, up from 17.90 in fiscal year 23.
Okay.
Similarly, the diluted EPS rose to 21.82 from 17.30.
Got it.
So, it's always a positive sign to see that upward trend.
Right. More profit per share for the owners of the company.
Exactly.
Okay. And finally, in terms of their financial position, how much cash do they have on hand?
Yeah, so they had $2,388.59 million in cash and cash equivalents as of March 31st, 2024.
Okay.
So this indicates a healthy liquidity position.
That's good to hear. All right. So strong growth across the board, it seems.
Absolutely.
So these impressive numbers really beg the question,
Yeah.
What's fueling this growth? What's driving this success?
Right.
And, more importantly, what are their expectations for continued performance?
Yeah, so there are several factors at play here. They've demonstrated a consistent upward trajectory. They've had a 17% compound annual growth rate in their top line over the past decade.
Wow. Okay.
And what's particularly noteworthy is the significant expansion in their operating margins between fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 22,
Right.
which increased by over 900 basis points.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's a big jump. Basically, it means their profitability on each rupee of revenue increased substantially during that period.
Okay.
So they're becoming much more efficient.
Much more efficient in their operations.
Right.
Okay. So that's definitely a good sign. But what about the market itself? What are some of the specific market factors that are contributing to their success?
Yeah, so there are a few key things here. Firstly, they've managed to grow their cash handling volumes at a faster rate than the overall currency and circulation growth.
Okay.
This was evident in fiscal year 22.
So they're gaining market share.
Exactly. They're capturing a larger share of the existing ash management market.
Yeah. Okay.
The Indian ATM market is also a major factor.
Right.
It's the third largest globally.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's huge. And despite its size, there's still significant outsourcing potential.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so around 40% of ATMs are still managed in-house by banks.
Okay.
So as banks look to cut costs and improve efficiency,
Right.
this presents a huge opportunity for CMS to expand their ATM as a service and other managed services.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes,
I mean, outsourcing can often lead to cost savings and, you get that specialization as well.
exactly, yeah.
So what other sectors or trends are we seeing that are contributing to their growth?
Well, the revival of the retail sector post-COVID has been a big factor.
Okay,
Well, it's led to increased cash collections for their clients, in areas like travel, hospitality, education.
right.
So this rebound in consumer activity directly benefits CMS's cash logistics business.
Got it. Okay.
Also, the high percentage of cash on delivery in the e-commerce market in India continues to drive demand for cash management services.
Right, because people are still paying with cash when they receive their packages.
Exactly. Yeah. So that creates a unique dynamic compared to, more digitally focused economies.
Yeah, for sure. And their managed services segment, how is that performing?
That's also performing very strongly.
Okay.
It's being fueled by the execution of their existing order book
Right.
and the acquisition of new clients who are looking to outsource these functions.
Okay. Okay.
And then, of course, they have their AIoT remote monitoring solutions.
Right, which seems like a key area for future growth.
Definitely, yeah. They see huge potential there, and they're aiming to double the business in the next 3 years.
Wow, that's ambitious.
It is, yeah, very ambitious.
And they're not just focusing on the financial sector, right? They're looking to expand into other areas as well.
That's right, yeah. So while their initial focus was on BFSI, so banking, financial services, and insurance,
Right.
they're now looking to expand into other sectors like NBFCs, so non-banking financial companies,
Okay.
insurance, and the public sector, so things like smart cities, railways.
Huawei EV charging infrastructure, even telecom.
So they're really branching out.
They are, yeah, they're trying to diversify their revenue streams.
Okay. And their enterprise sales strategy, how is that evolving?
Yeah, so they're strategically focusing on increasing the number of solutions they offer to their key customers.
Okay.
So they've gone from offering just 3 solutions to 8 now.
Oh, wow. So a significant increase.
Yeah, a big increase. And at the same time, they're aiming for deeper penetration across their major clients.
Okay.
So the number of strategic accounts generating over 100 crore in annual revenue has increased from 3 in fiscal year 21 to 8 in fiscal year 24.
Oh, wow. So they're really focusing on those high-value clients.
Yeah, they are. They're really trying to cultivate those relationships.
Okay, so with all these factors in play, what is their revenue outlook for the current fiscal year?
Yeah, so they've provided a revenue guidance range of 2,500 crore to 2,700 crore for fiscal year 25.
Okay.
And based on recent investor calls, they seem to be leaning towards the midpoint of that range.
Yeah.
And looking beyond the immediate future, they've identified several midterm opportunities as well.
Such as?
Things like currency chest outsourcing, fixed cost ATM, outsourcing retail CAF solutions, digital B2B payments,
Okay.
and collection services.
A lot of different areas that they're looking at.
Yeah, they're really exploring a lot of different avenues for growth.
And what about the total addressable market? What's the bigger picture here?
Yeah, so they estimate their total addressable market, or TAM,
Right.
to be around 22,000 crore by fiscal year 27.
Wow, so that's significant.
It is, yeah, indicates significant headroom for growth.
Right, so even though they're already quite large, they still have a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, there's still a lot of untapped potential in the market.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, well, let's shift gears slightly and talk about corporate governance and compliance.
Sure.
These are always important aspects to consider
Absolutely.
when evaluating a company. So what does that look like for CMMCO?
Well, their board composition as of March 31st, 2024 appears to be in line with regulatory requirements.
Okay.
They have 6 directors,
Okay.
including a woman non-executive chairperson, an executive vice chairman, a whole-time director and CEO, 2 non-independent directors, and 2 independent directors, one of whom is also a woman.
Okay, so a good mix there.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty balanced board.
Yeah.
And they also had a reappointment during the year.
Oh, okay, who's that?
Miss Sayali Karanjkar.
Okay.
She's continuing as an independent director, so
Yeah.
that ensures continuity and experience on the board.
Right, that's always good. And what about their auditors? Any changes there?
No, their statutory auditors, BSR & Co. LLP, were reappointed
Okay.
for a further term that extends until the 21st AGM in 2028.
Got it.
So that provides a level of consistency, in their financial oversight.
Right. And they also have a secretarial auditor.
We do, yeah. M/SM Soroya and Company.
Okay.
They conducted the secretarial audit for fiscal year 24, and their report noted compliance with various regulations, although there was a mention of a slight delay in filing certain forms with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs.
Oh, okay. Is that a concern?
It can be sometimes, but it doesn't seem like a major issue in this case.
Okay.
It was just a minor delay.
All right. Good to know. And what about their board committees?
Yeah.
The ones that oversee specific aspects of the company's operations,
Yeah, so they have the standard committees in place.
such as?
The Nomination and Remuneration Committee, which saw some changes in its composition during the year.
Okay.
They also have a CSR committee and a Stakeholders Relationship Committee.
Right.
And looking back at a previous year's report,
Yeah.
the Stakeholders Relationship Committee held one meeting during fiscal year 22, and the CSR committee also met once.
Yeah.
So, this indicates active engagement by these oversight bodies.
That's good to see that they're meeting regularly.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let's talk about employee stock options. These are often a part of executive compensation,
Right.
and they can align management interests with those of the shareholders.
Exactly.
So what's the situation with CMS Info?
So they have several employee stock option plans.
Okay.
There's the ESOP 2016 and ESOP 2023 for employees in general.
Right.
And then they also have specific plans for the CEO and management.
Okay.
So the CEO ESOP 2016 and management ESOP 2016.
Got it. And were there any changes to these plans recently?
Yeah, actually, there were amendments made in 2022 regarding the exercise period for the options.
Oh, okay. And what does that mean exactly?
Well, it basically impacts when those options can be converted into shares.
I see.
So it's something to keep in mind.
Okay, good to know. And how do they handle related party transactions?
Yeah, so they have a policy in place for that.
Okay.
And the company states that all transactions during the year were in the ordinary course of business
All right.
and conducted at arm's length.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, so this is standard practice, to ensure fairness and transparency.
Right. Of course. Okay, let's move on to social responsibility. The establishment of the CMS Info Foundation seems like a notable development.
It is, yeah. It shows their commitment to giving back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
So the CMS Info Foundation was established towards the end of fiscal year 23
Okay.
to formalize and expand their CSR efforts.
All right.
And their stated focus areas are quite broad.
Such as?
They include livelihood support with a focus on empowering women and youth healthcare support for the elderly and differently abled,
Okay.
environment support, and financial inclusion.
So pretty comprehensive approach.
It is, yeah, very comprehensive. They're really trying to make a positive impact.
That's great to hear.
And they have some specific projects underway as well.
Oh, really? Like what?
So they've partnered with an organization called Gunj in Odisha,
Okay.
and they're working in tribal-dominated villages there.
Right.
And the focus of this partnership is on improving livelihoods and water management.
Oh, wow. That's really important work.
Yeah, it is, especially in that region where
Mhm.
agriculture is heavily dependent on rainfall.
Exactly. And looking at the CSR committee composition from a previous report,
Yeah,
it included Mr. Rajiv Kaul,
right.
Mrs. Shamala Gopinath,
Yes.
Mr. Christoph Wisla Jamaras,
Uh-huh,
and Ms. Lee Sayali Karanchkar.
right.
So a lot of key board members are involved in these initiatives.
Yeah, they're very much engaged in these efforts.
And how much did they spend on CSR in the past year?
So in fiscal year 21-22, they allocated your $3.7356 million to CSR activities,
Okay.
focusing on ongoing projects in those areas we just talked about.
Got it. And the establishment of the foundation probably means that they're planning to scale up these efforts even further.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right, so let's move on to the nuts and bolts of their operations.
Okay,
Obviously, cash handling is a core part of their business.
absolutely.
So what kind of volumes are we talking about here, in terms of how much cash they're actually handling?
Yeah, so in a recent quarter, Q3 of fiscal year 24, they handled roughly 3.4 lakh crores in cash.
Wow, that's a staggering amount.
It is, yeah, it's a huge volume. And to give you a sense of their growth in this area, this was an increase of about 4 to 5% compared to Q2 of the previous year.
So they're steadily increasing the amount of cash they're moving.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And technology must play a huge role here
Oh, absolutely.
in managing all of this.
Yeah, they utilize a suite of proprietary technology solutions.
Okay.
So this includes CMS Connect
Okay.
for streamlined documentation processes,
All right.
Route Mapper for optimizing their transportation routes,
All right.
and CMS LJO, which is an AI-based application that
Uh-huh.
enhances ATM security.
Interesting. How
So
so?
it has features like password management, facial recognition for personnel geotagging for validation.
Okay.
So all these tools are really essential for improving both efficiency and security in their operations.
Right, of course. And with an operation of this size, employee safety is also paramount.
Oh, absolutely. It's critical.
So what measures do they have in place to ensure that their employees are safe?
Well, they have comprehensive measures in place.
Good.
They ensure strict compliance with all relevant labor laws and safety regulations.
Right.
They set clear safety targets,
Okay.
proactively identify potential hazards,
All right.
and they provide regular safety training to their employees.
That's good. And what percentage of their employees actually receive this training?
So in a past year, they reported that 25% of permanent employees and 100% of permanent women employees received safety and skill upgradation training.
Wow. 100% of the women employees.
Right.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it is very impressive.
Okay.
They also reported that 55% of casual, temporary, or contractual employees received training as well.
Okay. So a majority of their workforce is receiving this training.
Exactly.
Good to know. And what about waste management? Are they doing anything to be more environmentally responsible?
Yeah, they do have established policies for responsible waste management. So this includes the proper disposal of plastic and electronic waste through authorized partners.
So they're taking that seriously.
Yeah, they're aware of their environmental responsibility.
Okay. Let's touch on financial reporting and risk management.
Okay.
Understanding how they account for their business and manage potential risks is important,
Absolutely.
for getting a complete picture.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are some of the key aspects to note there?
Well, their accounting policies cover standard areas.
Okay.
Like how they recognize revenue.
Right.
So they typically do that over time for their service-based contracts and at a specific point in time for any sale of goods.
Got it.
They also have policies for handling leases, employee benefits taxation, the potential impairment of assets.
Okay.
And interestingly, their statutory auditors actually highlighted revenue recognition as a key audit matter.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
Well, auditors often focus on this area because it can be complex,
Right.
and there's potential for misstatement or even fraud
Right.
in how revenue is recorded.
So it's an area that requires extra scrutiny.
Yeah, exactly.
What about their internal controls?
So they do acknowledge the inherent limitations of any system of internal financial controls.
Right.
They note that material misstatements due to error or fraud can still occur,
Of course.
despite these controls being in place.
Right.
In terms of specific financial risks, they indicate that they maintain sufficient current assets
Right.
to effectively manage their liquidity risk.
So they can meet their short-term obligations.
Exactly.
And what about credit risk?
They consider their credit risk to be limited
Okay. Why is that?
because they have a diverse customer base.
Right. So they're not overly reliant on any one client.
That's right. Yeah,
All right. And finally, let's look at the shareholding pattern.
sure.
Understanding who the major investors are can sometimes be insightful.
Yeah, definitely.
So who are the significant shareholders in CMS Info?
So as of March 31st, 2024, some of the prominent shareholders included WF Asian Reconnaissance Fund Limited.
Sure. SBI Small Cap Fund
Right.
and Mr. Rajiv Kaul.
Got it. And was there anyone else who previously held a large stake in the company?
Yeah, Cyan Investment Holdings
Mhm.
Limited used to have a substantial stake.
Oh, okay.
Although their holding appears to have changed over time.
I see. And there was also a proposal in the recent AGM notice to reclassify their authorized share capital, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, and what does that mean exactly?
Well, it's basically a procedural matter.
Yeah.
It's not a major change.
All right, but still worth noting.
Yeah, it's something to be aware of.
Okay, so for our listeners out there who are interested in digging deeper into all of this information,
Yeah.
how can they access these investor materials?
Well, the annual report and the AGM notice are readily available online.
Okay,
You can find them on the company's official website,
right?
as well as on the websites of the stock exchanges, so BSE and NSE,
Okay,
and also on the NSDL website.
got it.
And the company typically sends these documents electronically to shareholders.
Yeah.
Who have registered their email addresses with them.
So it's all very accessible.
It is, yeah, very easy to find.
And if someone prefers a physical copy, Can they request one?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they can contact the company secretary.
All right. And the AGM itself is being conducted via video conferencing, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And the notice provides detailed instructions on how shareholders can participate remotely and cast their votes electronically.
Excellent. And if anyone has any specific investor relations queries, who should they contact?
They can reach out to Valarum advisors.
Okay, great. So to bring it all together, what are the essential key takeaways from our deep dive into CMS Info?
Well, in a nutshell, CMS Info Systems is demonstrating strong financial performance.
Yeah.
They're capitalizing on the growing trend of outsourcing in both the cash management and managed services sectors.
Yeah.
They've set ambitious growth targets fueled by their investments in technology-driven solutions like AIoT.
Right.
And they have a clear focus on cultivating key customer relationships.
And tapping into emerging market opportunities.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like a company with a strong foundation and a bright future.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So here's a final thought for our listeners.
Okay.
Given the increasing digitization of our world and the push towards a cashless economy,
Right.
how do you envision the future of cash management?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And what will be the role of companies like CMS in this evolving landscape?
Yeah. What are the long-term growth drivers and the challenges that they might face?
Exactly. Food for thought.
Definitely.
And for those of you who want to explore these nuances further,
Yeah.
we encourage you to check out the source documents yourselves.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
And we'll be back with more insights next time.
Sounds good.
Until then, take care.
See you later.